Good morning, everybody. A warm welcome to the AOI Wisdom Wednesday webinar. If you've just joined us, we will be starting our session at 11. Feel free to grab yourself a cup of coffee or some water while we just wait for more people to join. And we will be starting our session at exactly 11 o'clock. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. A warm welcome to today's Wisdom Wednesday. My name is Pumla, and I will be with Johan in this session. Thank you so much for joining us. We would like to also ask you to please engage with us on our Menti, and thank you so much for joining us. This session will be running from 11 until 12, and please feel free to also engage with us on the chat function if you have got any questions or any comments if you cannot engage with us on Menti. You are most welcome. And over to you, Johan.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Wednesday, Wisdom Wednesday. Pumla, thank you so much for the introduction, and I'd like to welcome all of you. I hope you are comfortable and that you are looking forward to spending the next hour or so with us, where we look at how seasons change and how this applies to the workplace. As Pumla mentioned, she'll be monitoring the chats, and from time to time, I will revert to Pumla to comment, to pick up on the chat, your comments, your queries. The time allocated to us this morning is 1 hour. I hope to conclude the presentation in 45 minutes to allow a bit of time for further interaction at the end of the session. As always, we encourage you to participate, as Pumla mentioned. You may do so either through the chat or through menti.com when we get to the interactive slides. Just before we go further, please will you take a photograph of the QR code on your screen displayed now. That will take you directly to the Menti site. And as we open up a Menti quiz, you'll then have access. You can also go to menti.com and the access code is displayed on screen 35294129. So once again, a very warm welcome. Let's ease into this topic of seasons that change in the workplace. As we are entering the midst of winter, I'm sure you can all feel the chill in the air. And it once again reminds us that similar to nature, things also change in societies, in the world, and our focus today also in the workplace. And I think since we were born, we've adapted to the various seasons. We know that when it's winter, we need to dress warmly. We need to close the windows at home so the wind doesn't come through. In a similar way, we also adjust in the workplace. And so the focus of today's session is to bring home to you the idea that we need to be adaptable in the workplace. Times change, technologies change, leaders change, processes change. And in all this, we need to be adaptable, because the more adaptable we are, the more resilient we become in our careers and in our workplaces and in life in general. So today's discussion, as I mentioned, we look at the seasons of work. We're going to start off by just looking at a bit of a history in terms of the workplace and how historical changes have influenced the workplace over time. We're going to look at the idea of adoption theory and how, when a new project or a new idea starts off, how it takes time for everybody to adopt the new project or the new leadership, and how eventually it gains traction over time. So that the idea of adoption theory. We also want to look at what does adaptability mean in the workplace, and how can we be more innovative, because obviously innovation and adaptability go together. Adaptability creates an environment in which innovation thrives. Innovation creates an environment where adaptation is required. Also, during these times of change, we might experience situations of flux, uncertainty. I'm sure you can reflect on your own work life or on your own life, and think of those times where you experience change, and also the feelings that you felt in these times. We want to look at how to deal with change, and finally, we'll close off with some ideas on innovation and creativity. So, as the title of our presentation says, seasons change and so does the world of work. And think of it in this way. As new products are introduced to a business, or new projects are being started, or new learnership takes over, you get a new manager, there is a new supervisor in your department. So it can bring a spring of fresh ideas, new ways of doing things, a fresh approach, and also ties in with the old saying of a new broom sweeps clean, the idea of getting rid of some of the old ideas and bringing in, new ways of doing it. So busy periods at work may also feel like summer, when we are very hard at work, trying to get things done, changing things around, and we are absolutely task focused. and we want to make sure that our goals are achieved. So that could be the summer in the workplace. Another way of thinking of the workplace are those times of autumn when things might change at work. There might be departmental restructuring. Um, we might even see job losses. We might see, an economic downturn where the finances of the business and, perhaps the world economy isn't that great. And so autumn might resemble these transitions. And then finally, winter, an unpleasant time in the workplace when there are changes and when things are, perhaps not going so well. We might think of it as winter. The point we are making with the seasons is that we need to be able to adapt. We need to recognize when the season is changing. We need to be the leaders in change. And if we're not the leaders, we need to support change. But the point is, we need to be adaptable and we need to be willing to look at things, with a clear lens, to adapt to these changes. It's very true that we can't stop the seasons from changing, but we can learn to adjust our sails. So, in thinking about adaptability and innovation when seasons change at work, let's just start off with a bit of a definition to sort of lay the basis for our discussion today. So, firstly, the idea of adaptability, the ability to adjust to change, to learn new skills and to thrive in new environments. There's two ways in which we can approach change. We can either be enthusiastic about the change, we can encourage the change, we can motivate for change, and we can sort of, go along with the flow, as it were. Another way is or another way to consider adaptability is if we are feeling hesitant, we're not willing to adapt, we're resisting change, and that can make our lives very, very difficult. So, a definition of change is that ability to adjust to change, to learn new skills, importantly, and to thrive in new environments. So, we want to be positive when it comes to adaptability. And then the other sort of idea that's intertwined in our presentation today is the idea of innovation, is to think of new things, to think creatively, is that when seasons change and things change at work, can we be innovative in our approach? Can we add to the change? Can we add new ways of doing and new ways of thinking about change? So these two ideas about adaptability and innovation is what guides our discussion today. So, from a historical perspective, we can look at the last 120 years and we can pick up how things and trends, how workplaces have changed, how industrial relations have changed in the last 100 or 120 years. And so, perhaps the starting point for this discussion is just to look at change from a historical perspective. And you'll notice some of the changes. You've either studied this or you've learned about this or you know about this. But I'm sure we are all familiar with the industrial age, which took place between the 1920s and the 1940s. Bear in mind that industrial change, that era took place at different times worldwide. And so often when we talk about 1920s to 1940s, this is probably the case for Europe and the United States, with South Africa and other countries experiencing this change, in later years. But certainly at its prime in the industrial era, the workplaces were very hierarchical. You had leaders at the top, employees at the bottom. It was really, often not a great time to be in the workplace. People fought for rights as workers. People fought for a fair day's pay and for fair hours. And so, really, we can see from here on already Um, that also work was very factory-based, manufacturing, sort of heavy. Um, so not so much of office work going on. And some of the technologies that appeared in this era are things like typewriters. I'm sure you've seen a typewriter, or you've heard about a typewriter. Things like telegraphs. Hopefully, you've heard of that. And some of the early telephones came about in this time. And also, what we see is earlier I mentioned that we started seeing employees fighting for rights in the workplace. And it's also during this era where we see the rise of labor unions, where labor unions represent employees fighting for a fair day's wage, fighting for fair hours and decent conditions in which to work. The following era is the post-war boom. So you know that World War II ended in about 1945, and immediately worldwide after that period of war, World War One going into World War II, we see a boom in the world. We see a boom in economies. We see tremendous growth worldwide. With the war created famine, it created poverty, it was a dangerous time to live, in a number of countries. And so immediately when this, when the war was resolved, we see this economic upturn, this growth, this era of success. And we see the growth of large corporations, with multiple branches, entering the market. And some of the early sort of mainframe computers and even photocopiers appeared at this time. And we also see, that employment is more regulated. We see a fair days, hours, 9 to 5 sort of hours, 8 to 5, and, that sort of a movement towards fair workplaces. So after that, in the 1980s to 1990s, we see a digital revolution. It's the time of the desktop computer. Everybody is acquiring a computer, and we see lots of changes, from factory work to office work because we needed people to operate the computers. And in this time, we also see fax machines. Maybe you've seen a fax machine. Maybe you've even worked on one. And we also see the rise of the early internet. The internet has grown tremendously over the last 50 or 60 years, but this is really where we see the start of the internet, and also this idea of corporate culture, corporate business. And you've seen movies where there are many cubicles in an office. You might also have spent time in an office with many cubicles and might still, but this is really, it's characterized through the age 1980 to 1990s, where we see this uptake in digital equipment and digital ways of doing things. Then in 2000s, we get the information age. Information is just so much more available and it's accessible to all of us. And, depending on your age, you might be able to, or you might remember this time where, the first smartphones, you may have even had a BlackBerry at some point. If you know what BlackBerry is, it's also a mobile phone. But departing from BlackBerry, we saw these smartphones like we know them today. And obviously, the technology just grows day by day, and the capability of our cell phones, and even the, smart watches, more recently, and even rings that connect with your cell phone, and even sunglasses. So things have changed tremendously from 2000. We see cloud computing, we see social media and the massive expansion of social media. We think of Twitter or now X and Facebook and LinkedIn, all sort of, setting the stage at the beginning of the 2000s. We see more open offices. COVID has also brought along many changes in the workplace, which we'll discuss in a moment. But we see lots of remote work, this idea of gig economy, Silicon Valley. where people work on computer systems. They also do precarious work. They take on contracts, they develop technology, and they move on to the next thing. And then also a lot of flexibility in digital communication. Not we don't have letters anymore. We don't have faxes. We've got a variety of other means of communication. We have email. We have Teams chat. So and sort of all sorts of platforms with which we can communicate. And then presently, here from about the 2020s, unfortunately, COVID really changed the way in which we educate. There was a massive growth in online learning. Offices, the idea of being able to work at home, that's sort of, grown in the last couple of years. Automation, virtual collaboration, um, workplaces that are more designed around the employee and sort of you know the idea is that we can do our work anywhere and at any pace as long as the job gets done. We see this sort of more frequently in workplaces. Obviously, COVID has, as I mentioned earlier, COVID, forced a lot of change in workplaces, and it's sort of pushed us to be a lot more technologically advanced, to be able to interact on electronic platforms and the like. So just interesting to see how seasons change. And then, of course, with seasons changing, from a historical perspective, how we see workplaces, changing. So I'd like for you to participate in this, Menti. The question is, in thinking about change, I tend to be either excited, cautious, resistant, or curious. And then there's no right or wrong answer. And it also depends on the situation. It depends what challenges we face or what changes we face. But just in general, think of when you experience change in your life. What was your approach to the change? And obviously you can connect via the menti.com website and use the access code. I'll just repeat that access code for you. It's 3529 4129 menti.com. Just interact from there, and you're also most welcome to connect with us over the chat and just tell us whether when you experience change, were you excited, cautious, resistant, or curious? Remembering that it really depends on the situation. So just a general thought on how you perceive the change. I see we have quite a few people that were excited about change, and I must admit that from a personal perspective, I also like a bit of change in my daily job. I do different types of things, and some things require creativity, and other things require downright administration. Um, but I do like change, and I like to be at the forefront of change and not necessarily the follower. And that gives me exciting opportunities in my daily work to support change. So lots of people are excited, some are curious, and I think curious is a very good thing. They need to know more about change. Resistance, of course, we are going to be resistant depending on what sort of change is happening, and that's perfectly okay. And some of us are cautious, and that's okay too, because when facing with change, a certain level of, apprehension is normal until you have the full facts. Thank you so much for participating. I see we continue to get responses. Remember, you are most welcome to also just type in the message box on the chat about how you tend to react to change. So we've got a good mixture, and that's very important because we need all types of people in the workplace. And I think important for us, having this discussion today is, from the results we're achieving, is to remember if you are leading change or you are innovating or you are changing things, you will have different responses. And as a change leader, as somebody who's involved as in initiating change, remember that you have all these audiences to cater for, and you need to address the concerns of those individuals who are cautious about it. You need to address those individuals who are resistant to change, because remember, they need to buy into the change. Otherwise, your change will not be successful. And so, working with those who are resistant to change, and also those that are curious. If you are the leader of change, you need to also address um, the ones that are curious. What are the questions that are coming to surface about this change, and how can we address this change? So thank you very much for your interactions also in the chat. It's nice to see that we have a good mixture, and this is sort of the response we hope to get, is to see these different personalities in action. So we've spoken about, our feelings about change and how we react to change. And we said that that was important because, um, it all depends on what is being changed. And I agree with Jade in the chat. It's also about how the change is communicated. So if we are the change leaders, we need to remember that we need to communicate the change. We need to communicate it clearly. And as a change leader, you want to make sure that people buy into your change. And the only way in which you can do that is through transparent communication. Thank you, Jade. So, in terms of adaptability, we say adaptability is essential. Why is it essential? So, if seasons change, we need to adapt. So, one idea there is that industries are constantly evolving. We've seen this, when we did the trip down memory lane and we looked at the various eras from the industrial age to what we know today. We know that workplaces change. They get new technologies, and that was very evident in, when we did the history of the workplace. Technologies change. We need to adapt to technologies. Laws change, ways of doing change, trends, in the consumer market change, and we need to respond to those trends. So industries are constantly changing, new technologies, the world economy, things are changing, and we need to be able to adapt to those change. So it's important for us because our employers, they need this sort of change. They also value professionals who can pivot and embrace change. In other words, who can adopt the change, who can read the change map, who can be pioneers in change and also support change in the organization. And so employees value that in employees. So we need to keep an open mind. We need to work with change and see change in a positive light, if of course that change is positive. So I enjoy Primrose's comment. I used to be resistant until I learned that change comes with a lot of positive growth, personally and professionally. And I think that is it really is powerful to hear that. And I completely agree with you. It does. And we need to see it in a positive light. Adapting to different situations and adapting to change ensures career longevity and continuous growth. So as things change in the workplace, we want to be the leaders in that change. We want to adopt the change so that we can ensure longevity in our career. It means we remain, in tune with change. We learning new skills. We mastering new competencies, and it helps us to adapt in the workplace. So let's have a look at this graph. Um, the idea of adoption theory, and in this particular instance, the model has been applied to technology, but this model applies to change in many contexts and many situations. But just this idea that when there are change or when there is change, that we have different people that react differently to change. And so here at the beginning of change, and I think in your life as well, sometimes you were the leader in change, and sometimes you were following, and sometimes you didn't follow at all. And that's okay because we all react differently to change. It depends what the change is about. But this graph helps us to understand that if we are initiating change, if somebody else is initiating change, who are the role players, when this change comes about? And so, at the beginning of change, we see the idea of innovators, new ideas, new ways of doing things, adapting things. And we see that the innovators are not that many. So we have the innovators, and then we have this idea of early adopters. Early adopters examples are when you were one of the early adopters of LinkedIn, or you were one of the early adopters of Instagram, or you were an early adopter of a new computer system or a new way of doing things at work. So, and as we go up this graph, we also see how the number of people increase. So we'll have a number of early adopters who at the outset was quite interested in the change. They adopted and they really assist to drive change. We must also remember that the whole idea of change is also, it happens socially. It's what people say about change. It's how they promote the change. It's how they share the change with other people. And so if we want change to happen, we need people to be talking about the change and not in a negative way. We need to be focusing on those individuals who are positive about the change. And so the more we have these early adopters, we then increase until we have this early majority. But there is a gap between the early innovators, or the ones that came up with the change, and the early adopters, which we call the chasm. Now, a chasm is somewhere where there's a distance, where there's a break. And so sometimes when innovators have bright ideas and they come up with new things, and they're excited about change, we have the early adopters. The early adopters are visionaries. They want to adopt, but they're not prepared to take the risk. And so when we are initiating change, we must make sure that this chasm or this gap doesn't happen, where we're proposing an idea, but we're not getting the following from the early adopters. Because if the cycle breaks at this point, you will not initiate change. So, change, we need to make sure that as innovators, our ideas are stable. We are prepared to take risks, but we are also prepared to discuss with our early adopters how change is safe, how it is the way to go and the way forward. And so we want to avoid this chasm. But generally, the idea is you have the early innovators, the population increases, we have early adopters, then we have the early majority, and all of a sudden, the majority of individuals have switched over to the change, have adopted the new computer system, is doing things differently at work. Then we also have the idea of the late majority, people that come on board later, and then the laggards who are resistant to change. They don't want to change, and by the time that they are willing to change, the innovators have changed the plan completely. So it's important for you as a leader to understand that change goes through stages. Change is communicated. And as an innovator, you need the support of the early adopters. And even if you're not the one initiating the change, if you are an early adopter, you also have the power to persuade and to initiate change. And so when seasons change at work, when there are new ideas, we want to be part of the early adopters. If the change is positive, we want to be part of the early adopters. We want to ensure that this chasm doesn't take place, this break in the change process. And we want to drive it and we want to communicate it so that we get more and more people on board. I see Tebogo is saying acknowledge the inevitability of change, stay positive, communicate openly, and embrace new opportunities. Absolutely. Change is inevitable. We've seen it in the history of the workplace. We saw how COVID changed things overnight. And so, the old cliche of the only thing that is constant is in fact change. And we must remember that. And we must be part of those early adopters and early majority that, embrace change, look to the positive, support others that are struggling with change. So when we think about adaptability and innovation, the two go hand in hand. Adaptability enables innovation. So it's very difficult for innovation to take place where individuals are not adaptable, where we don't have those early change agents and where we don't have that first, sort of group of people who are supporting change. Adaptable individuals and organizations are more open to change. And what this means is for businesses and organizations, they tend to change their way of doing a lot easier because the organization adopts a change philosophy, they support change. And so we need to understand that adaptability creates this space where we can innovate, where we can create new products, where we can implement new policy and new ways of doing. Innovation also drives adaptability. Innovation introduces new ways of doing things. To stay relevant, people and organizations must adapt to change. You'll see many companies have also, changed over time in terms of their product offering. They expand into new markets, they create new products. If their products become obsolete or out of fashion, they change their line of products to to respond to market needs. And so innovation drives adaptability. And importantly, when we look at innovation and when we look at adaptability, those two go hand in hand in terms of building resilience, building strength, personal character, the strength of the business. In volatile environments like economic shifts that we saw during COVID, adaptability allows for a quick response, while innovation provides creative solutions to emerging challenges. And I think this is important to remember as a leader. You need spaces in which you build resilience, and you can only get there if you have a culture where adapting to change is acceptable, and it's promoted, and you have an environment in which you foster innovation. You are open for new ideas. You listen to your employees, you listen to your colleagues, and you are open to change. Hlonipa is saying most of the time in my working environment, they tend to change a lot without communicating properly. And clearly, I now know and understand as to why associates don't adapt easily. Very important point. We need to communicate change. If you are going to create an environment in which people feel safe to change, you need to first of all explain why you are bringing in the change. How will it affect people in the business? What are the long-term benefits of the change? So I agree fully. Communicating properly is very, very important. And I hope you remember that for when you are initiating change going forward. So I'd like you to interact with a slide, another Menti.com slide. You can go to Menti.com's website and interact from there. The access code I've given to you just in case you've lost it, 35294129. Please interact with us. When change occurs, I am generally, and that goes back to that graph that we looked at, change. Are you an innovator? Are you the one starting the change? Are you generally an early adopter? Are you part of the early majority? Are you part of the late majority? Or are you a laggard who might be resistant to change? Remember, there's no right or wrong answer because it depends what the change is about. So in certain things, I might decide I'm going to be a laggard. I might be part of the late majority because it's not critical for me. But in other situations, as I mentioned to you earlier, I prefer to be an early adopter and part of the early innovation crowds. So you can also interact in the chat on Teams. So you can just drop your idea there. Are you an early adopter? Are you an innovator? And sorry, that yeah, are you an innovator, late majority, a laggard, or part of the early majority? So we have quite a few of early adopters. We have innovators. Anybody in the chat want to share with us? Pumla, are you okay to reflect on your approach to change? I suppose that maybe you have an example you can share with us. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. Just in
No, it's
terms of
okay,
how you
Johan.
approach change.
Definitely. I think on my side, I approach it with caution, I can't really say I'm an early adopter, but, I'm part of just the late majority. It just takes some time for me to warm up to change. And I proceed with caution. I look at the environment around me, the people around. Um, if, for example, it's a new job, I start to learn the culture of the office culture. How do people interact with one another? Am I trading carefully? Those are the things that I implement, and that's generally what I want to do with change. I want to be cautious, not exactly meaning that I don't want change, but I'm always cautious to everything that is around me. I'm very sharp when it comes to my surroundings and learning people, getting to know how things work in a new environment so that I can then be comfortable and embrace the change.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful contribution. And as I said earlier, situations change and we tend to look at change, depending on the situation. But I agree, Pumla, reading the room is an important skill. And, to look at the environment, to ask questions about the change. How will the change impact my colleagues? How will it change me? And even if we go into new workplaces, there is so much we need to adapt to. So thank you for sharing that. I agree with Marley. It depends on the situation. And then Mosby is saying, I approach it with caution, but I'm mostly an early adopter. And I think that's where we all sort of want to be. Approach with caution, but also adopt change, where where the change is good and it's positive. And thank you for your contributions in the chat. And also on the Menti, it looks like we've got a lot of early adopters in the audience with our innovators second, late majority. I agree. Sometimes I'm the late majority. It just depends what the change is about and, and how the importance of that change. And some of us are even a laggard. And I agree, some things I'm just not interested in and not prepared to change, unfortunately. But it really, really depends on the situation. But again, as future leaders or as current leaders, I want you to remember this, that when change occurs, people handle change differently. And as a proponent of change or a change leader, you need to understand that there are all these different people, these different types of people in your audience, and their approach to change, depending on the situation, are all different. So you need to collaborate with your colleagues, in terms of promoting change, creating innovation, so that you cater for all of these audiences. And also understand it's normal to have early adopters, but it's also normal to have a late majority. This is part of the change cycle. So when things change, teams also change. You may be familiar with a model which is being drawn on screen now. They are the stages of team development. The idea belongs to Tuckman. And what he says is when teams start off, they start off with this forming stage. They still members of the team are still trying to understand, what is their specific role in a team? What is the goal of this team? How will we achieve our goals? In other words, what map will we follow to get to the outcomes? And so this is called the forming stage of team development. And all teams, whether they be formal business teams, whether they be informal teams in social circles, and even informal teams in your workplace, they will all go through the stages. And I think you'd be able to relate to a situation. Um, that's where you are part of the team, where when you start off as a member of the team, you are a bit uncertain as to what the purpose of the team is and how we will achieve our goals. And that's quite normal. That's the forming stage of a team. Sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of the times, once these teams are formed, we also get, we also experience this period of storming. And storming can be when the team members they argue with each other. We're establishing team leadership, and so you might have, several leaders wanting to lead the team. There might be some animosity. People might not get on with one another, and those are all normal stages of team development. Once all these changes, we've got some leadership going, we're getting to know one another, we know what each other's strengths and weaknesses are, then we go to this norming stage where we establish ground rules. We know what the goal is of the team, we know what we want to achieve. And once this norming stage has rooted and we know where the team is going, all of a sudden the team starts performing. We are delivering on our goals and we are achieving what we set out to do at the beginning of team development. When change occurs, these are the normal stages of team development. When change occurs, however, we often find a breakdown in teams because again, the teams have to go back. Where they were at the performing stage and maybe they regress back to the storming stage or back to the forming stage. Because in times of change, roles change, goals change, the purpose of a team changes. And so, when these changes occur, we might often go back to forming. We grouping new teams together, new team members, or it might go back to storming. All of a sudden, the current leadership we had is not going to work out. We need to elect a new team leader for this project because the project has changed or the goals of the project has changed. And so the point I'm making with this slide is teams go through stages. And when we have change in the workplace, it is not abnormal for the team to regress and to go back to the storming stage, to go back to the norming stage, establish new goals, establish new ways of doing things to once again perform. Be aware of this because as a team leader in the future, or you're a team leader at current, or you're the manager of a department, when things change, you often find that there could be tension within teams. You often find that goals need to be reformulated, that new plans need to be made for achieving goals. And so understand that teams go through stages and it's quite normal. But what you want to monitor is that the team doesn't get stuck on the storming stage and they don't move forward, or they get stuck on this forming stage right at the beginning. They're not getting anything done. They're just getting together, but nothing's happening. What you want to make sure is that teams move progressively through the forming stage, through the storming stage, so that they get to this point where they are norming, where they are devising plans, when their goals are clear, so that we can get them to the performing stage again. So in times of change, teams change. And so we need to understand how in these times to communicate change and to how to move teams along and motivate them to get to the performing stage again. So I like Mishak. He says change is a pain where you need to consider diversity and what are the advantages and disadvantages with the team. Change can be a pain. And we need to understand that our audience is diverse. Our audience has different needs. People respond differently. And I think key is for us as leaders to remember that our audience has different individuals and we need to respond to the concerns of each individual and their diverse needs. Tebogo comments, the only change I adopt easily to is technological changes. I agree because often the technology is just so much easier. I tend to enjoy new gadgets. I'm with you on that one. And software and improve office management. I'm 100% behind you. I like those sort of changes. And I think what we're seeing with artificial intelligence is that there are major changes coming in the way businesses are run, how we analyze reports, how we work with data. And so you'll increasingly see the role of AI in the workplace. Going forward. And that's an example of a change that we should be open to. Please explore AI and the possibilities of AI. Remember that AI is not there to replace you, especially when you're a student. Don't abuse AI. Use AI to help you in your study program, but it's not supposed to replace your critical thinking. But it has a fantastic role as a study buddy. So you can ask AI questions, you can ask it to formulate things in a way that it's more easily understood. So those are nice changes that we can adapt. And just Marnie saying again, early communication is absolute key. And I'm glad that this issue of communication is coming through so strongly in this group today. So, while talking about communication, I think most of us are familiar with the communication model. So we have a sender that sends a message. We have a receiver who is somebody in our audience. We have to decide how to communicate this message. We might use an email, a telephone call, or a WhatsApp message. And then very important for the sender is to receive feedback to understand was our message properly understood in the way that we intended. And so when we are communicating change, it's important to remember that it's a two-way process. Communication, which is one-sided from the sender to the receiver only, is not communication. We need to open up dialogue and we need to open up discussion about change. Visuals are very powerful when communicating change. Use pictures, use graphics, use maps as a way of communicating change, and always be transparent. What you say to one person about change, make sure that you are consistent in your message. If you're an early change agent, you want to communicate a change in policy, make sure that your message is consistent to everybody and doesn't vary from one individual to the next. This idea of consistency, we want to be empathetic, so we want to understand the receiver's point of view. We want to understand their feelings when change happens. And that's why we did, this model of, different people adapt to change differently. We have early adopters, we have late majorities. It's to understand that we must be empathetic to individuals who are undergoing change and how we communicate with them. The idea of timeliness, make sure, as you have said often in the chat, make sure that you communicate change, but make sure that you are timely in your communication, that you're communicating at the outset change, why it's happening and how it's happening. And then always be clear about your message so that it's unambiguous. People understand what you are communicating about change. So on screen now are some general tips about dealing with change. You can just sort of mull over the words, but I think some of the top tips for embracing change and dealing with change is to embrace a growth mindset. And I think from the chat, you've said to me that, when change occurs, It's important to have the right state of mind, that you are open to change. And so, this idea of growing, learning new skills, new ways of doing, adapting in that way is very important. Keep learning continuously. You know about the idea of lifelong learning. Learning shouldn't stop after your formal qualification with Academy of York or wherever you are studying. You should continue. Things change. You need to upgrade your qualifications. So learning really is a lifelong thing, whether that be in your personal life or from an academic perspective. Be open to feedback. Listen to what people are saying, because that's the only way in which you can measure whether your message is being well received and how it's been received. How it's been received. Adopt problem solving skills when you are faced with change. Adopt a problem solving mindset. Work on providing solutions, to work through change. Manage stress. I know it's easy to get stressed when there's change. My work is changing, my responsibilities is changing. You need to manage that stress, because when stress increases in your body and the stress hormone increases, it sort of closes off your mind to change. You go into sort of a fight or flight mode where you are fighting for yourself and you are fleeing. We want to avoid that when change happens. Be flexible, understand that roles might change, activities at work might change. So that's important. Communicate, as we have said, and we've seen often in the chat today, and cultivate curiosity and creativity. If you're a leader, create an environment in which people want to change, where you listen to new ideas and new ways of doing it. You might not be able to adapt or to adopt all the suggestions that your staff or your team members make, but it's important that you remain open and you keep that channel of communication open so that people feel free to suggest change and to be innovative in their workplace. Klonipa is saying in most cases you'd find that you are new in the workplace as a team leader, and there are associates that have been in the environment for many years. I understand they've got their set ways of doing things. And there could be issues with change. If you are the new leader on the block, you have the new thing and new way of doing things. You'd find them saying that we have been doing this like this forever and it works. And so that's really, really, really tough. And I've been there. So, good luck with that. Keep on working, with these individuals. Eventually they will listen and they will change, but be firm and explain why the change is necessary. Communicate it, as you say in the chat. And you will change mindset. So just keep at it. Soon they will come to learn of your new skills and your new ways of doing things, and you will be successful. It's about perseverance. So innovation is another important aspect of our discussion today. Creativity is important. It fuels innovation. It fuels thinking about things differently. It drives change. It unlocks potential. It enhances your mental health. Remember, your brain needs practice. So you need to innovate. You need to do the creative things in your job. And also innovation builds the future. We're running short of time. If you could just engage with this picture for a moment. You don't have to answer these questions on the chat, but you can. Just jot down on a piece of paper, look at this image, and what is the first thing you notice in the image and why? The next question is, if this image were part of a story, what might be happening? Can you find any other patterns, symmetry, or repetition in the image? And then lastly, is there anything in this image that defies logic or the rules of physics? So you can just have a look at this picture, maybe just in your head answer these questions. Just very briefly, there's no right or wrong answer. It is really just showing you how the brain works. And so in number one, the question, what is the first thing you notice in the image and why? So, so one of the things that I notice is the staircase is floating in the sky. And if you walk up the steps, it doesn't always seem possible. When it twists and turns, it doesn't make sense. But it does feel mysterious with the clouds and it's uncertainty. So when responding to this question, it's the right side of your brain at work. And the right side of your brain is the part of your brain that's responsible for creativity. So when thinking about innovation and change, you really want to work with this right side of your brain. And obviously, your brain naturally chooses which side is best. And we are all different. Some of us are right brain dominant, some of us are left brain dominant. But just to show you, in terms of creativity, it's the right brain. With the second question, it's also the right brain. If it was a story, like for example, a dream traveler is exploring a world where thoughts shape reality, each door leads to a different memory. That's a fictitious story. That's something I'm creating in the right side of my brain. The idea about patterns and symmetry is the left side of your brain at work. It's looking for patterns. Is there harmony between the doors? We see that the doors are relatively evenly spaced. And sort of at each landing there's a door. And so that's your left brain at work. It's looking for patterns, it's looking for repetition. And then in the last question, is there anything that defies logic? And there are many examples in this picture. But the staircase, as I mentioned earlier, loops in a way that's impossible in real life. And the doors open into clouds, which we also know is not possible. So it breaks the rules of space. And here it's both the right and the left hand side of our brain at work. Being creative in everyday work, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Encourage your teams where you are leading a team to ask, what if, why not? Embrace curiosity, tweak and improve as you go along, collaborate with others, because remember, more heads on a particular problem looking at change is much better than just your own head. So get different perspectives and different viewpoints. Take some smart risks because change often goes along with some risk taking. Um, and the idea of an idea journal, it doesn't have to be a journal. It can even just be your to-do list on your desk. Some ideas that you maybe jot down and will come back to later to think about. As leaders, create a safe space for thinking and reflect and iterate often, in terms of innovation. After completing a task, ask what worked, what didn't work, how can I change things going forward? And so the key message of today is we can't stop the seasons from changing because we know change is inevitable. It's the only constant, but we can adjust ourselves. We can be open to change. We can be flexible. And we can have an open mind when it comes to change. And we can also be some of the early majority that supports the change. So it's important to be flexible in the workplace when things change, you know. Uh, support the change if it's a good cause and if it's positive, support the change and sort of be at the front when it comes to change in the workplace. So our time is now officially over. It was absolutely fantastic engaging with you. Pumla, is there anything you wish to add at this point?
Yes, Johan, thank you so much for a fantastic session. I just wanted to remind our students about the AOI referral program. It's a great opportunity to share the benefits of Academy of York with your friends as well as earn rewards. So, when you refer someone to the college and they successfully register, you will be awarded 500 Rand. If you are still paying towards your fees, this 500 Rands will be credited to your Academy of York account. However, if you have completed your payments, you will then receive the 500 Rand paid directly into your bank account. So not only will you be gaining a study buddy, but you get an opportunity to make some cash on the side as well. So if you'd like further details, you can refer to your student advisor. I do prefer that you engage with the student advisor so that your referral doesn't go on the website and add their details there. They should be coming to us from you via your student advisor. We appreciate you all joining us today. And from my side, we are looking forward to seeing you at the next event.
Thank you very much, Pumla. From my side as well, thank you very much. Thank you for interacting with us. It was lovely spending time with you on this very important topic. Some a good idea there about a study buddy and how you can reduce the fees on your student account. As promote us, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you to Pumla. And thank you to Ngoni, who worked behind the scenes from an IT perspective. We enjoyed spending time with you, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Wisdom Wednesday. Have a great week further, everyone. Bye.
Bye.